you're probably using Claude Code incorrectly. And I'm going to give an in-depth tutorial on how to have your Claude Code set up. I'm going to talk about how to get you to a level 5 Claude Code setup. You're probably working between a level 1 and 2 right now, especially my senior practitioners or senior engineers. And just because you have one or two of the configurations that would normally be listed in level 5 or 4, a lot of people may confuse their workloads for being in the higher tiers. I'm going to break down what that looks like, why you are in the tier you are, and what you can do to configure that to work for you in real advantage. Because I'm not seeing enough engineers use the true orchestration and automation that happens with things like Claude Code or OpenAI's Codex, Google Gemini CLI, and now XAI's Grok coding agent as well. So all of these things should be held in the same limelight, and you should expect the features that Claude Code is setting for the market today to be the same things you see happening down the road. So let's jump into it. I'll have a lot of stuff on screen today. If you haven't seen my presentations before, check the link in the bio so you can check out my work on the refinery paradox that talks about how artificial intelligence will become a bigger widespread adoption from the people who actually supply the infrastructure, and then they'll end up buying people like Anthropic and OpenAI, and what you're seeing now is OpenAI and Codex and Claude Code. Those huge products and services are going to help Anthropic and OpenAI end up buying companies that they'll end up competing with. So I've actually even heard recently there's kind of whisperings that Anthropic is looking at buying Atlassian. So that looks pretty cool to be happening. We're going to talk about Claude Code and how it breaks up for the full software development lifecycle, what that really looks like too. If you're a vibe coder, this is a great video for you to check out as well. If you're a vibe coder who's an engineer already, mid-level to entry, this is a great video for you to check out. This is going to be, I want to say, common language across the spectrum for everyone to understand. And you should be able to take what I'm going to present to you today in a pretty long form content and use this to increase your workloads as well. Also minimize the impact of limits on your account. And maybe consider investing in the bigger tiers as I start to show you some of the great things that it can do. Okay, so let's get into that. First off, let's break down what is the SDLC, or the software development lifecycle. See, a lot of folks that I've seen vibe coding really jumping into product development mixed with code development are missing how these steps should be implemented to keep you from putting out bad product, and then also to be more mindful of like things like security and data privacy, right? Like these things would be essentially thought about if you could just put in core stages that are usually planned out in professional shops. Excuse me, I'll be taking drinks here. So in the first step, you'll see planning, right? Defining the project goals. This seems pretty clear, but we'll talk about why I think most of the work that you'll be doing in Claude Code work needs to be done in the planning phase. And because people are overlooking that, they end up spending a crap ton of tokens that puts them in a bad situation. Requirement analysis. This also seems like it should be obvious, but it's just something that's overlooked so many times. Even as you become a senior engineer and you keep moving up the food chain, I think this might be the area that your skill set develops out the most, because soft skills, talking to people, is just so essential. You need to gather details from the business or the clients, and you need to be able to really get to the bottom of what you're developing and not just spin your wheels or spend money doing things that won't work. You also want to take designing very, very seriously, right? So these first three areas are essentially just should be spending a lot of the time you're working in planning, requirement analysis, and design. But what I see is probably the smallest amount of time spent here in general from folks after agents have been made available. Implementation, testing, deployment, these things seem like they are more widely known, so I don't think I need to speak too heavily here. But I know that testing across the landscape doesn't get enough love. So, really testing for bugs, glitches, errors, ensuring that your code works or is just effectively written, efficiently written. Again, these things are about code or token maximization, right? You want to be maximizing the code and you want to maximize how it actually works for you in real time. Um, so let's talk about the levels that are made up for your Claude Code work, your Codex work, whatever you're doing. I like to give visuals for literally everything. So on the screen, you should be seeing from level 1 through level 5. At the very top of this, right out of the box, right? This is generally just downloading Claude Code to your CLI and working through small individual efforts, right? So chatting, using Bash, editing small files or editing small lines, and doing general reads. Consistently manual though, right? And inconsistent progress in any work that you might be doing. Level 2 would say that you have taken the first step towards really moving that car or building your garage. And that would say that you've worked on the Claude MD file. If you are not familiar with what that is, we'll talk about it. But you've also started building to coding standards, to well-known coding standards. You build out permissions. You've talked about slash commands. You might even have quite a few. You might have quite a few that you've grown in love with. You've been able to see the value in the repeatable work, the executable low hanging fruit that you don't necessarily need to do anymore. And so I see a lot of network engineers who love Codex because of this, or Claude Code because of this. I see a lot of security engineers who love Claude Code up to the level of this. And so I think this is probably the average level. If I'm being honest, level 2 is kind of where most people are. Level 3, I would say, is when you see folks really starting to dabble into the specialized work for their particular area or subject matter or domain. So you'll see like global project instruction. You'll see global versus project instructions become more of a specific way of doing business. And if you don't understand the difference between global instructions and project level instructions, definitely want you to put some time in to understand that. We'll lightly touch on that. Maybe we'll do some videos in the future to do that as well. So I'll stop at this moment. If you have not already liked this video, please go ahead, drop a comment, let me know where you're watching from, share this so that way more engineers are getting the feedback on technically how to use Claude Code or Codex. And in the future, I'll start breaking down some actual projects from repositories I have available from my company GitHub as well. So link in the bio, all that detail is there if you haven't already checked it out. Level 4 is a bit confusing because there are people who are using elements of level 4, but they're not building them in the smart factory way. So if you've already connected some MCP servers, you're using elements of level 4, but you probably are using a lot of individualistic processes, or you are specialized in level 3, level 2 situation. It just, there's many ways that you can kind of take this to the next level, right? So hooks, telemetry, parallel agent dispatching, connected systems leading to parallel work, leading to more efficiency, leading to you as an engineer being able to manage several projects at one time. Excuse me, drink break. Level 5 is going to be described, I think, as the most advanced at this moment of being able to manage projects from an orchestrated point of view, and then be able to do an auditable point of system review in that, right? Like you'd be able to actually pull auditing files and show workflows of how different code and different PRs have been accomplished. So this is really talking about that orchestrator executor model, where you should understand the difference between using some of the more advanced models like Opus for the strategy, and deeply using it for the strategy piece, against all the other elements I've kind of listed here, and then being able to tie that with triggers and external memory mirror setups and Claude on Claude auditable configurations. So a lot of that may not even be something you've dabbled into yet, and that's totally fine. Stick around at least for this video. I may try to do everything right now. It's going to be a long form content in general. I don't want to go too crazy, so I'll do about 20 minutes, 25 minutes tonight. We may have to do a part one, part two of this. So drop a comment, like this video, let me know if you are definitely interested in seeing more of this content. So let's go ahead and move on to what level 5 really means when I say that audit driven point of view, right? So that audit driven point of view would mean no arbitrary preferences. Every configuration choice is the output of a structured Claude audit of the work that I have been doing in this sense, and that you would do in your work, in the same way. So what does that mean, right? Like, you'd have layered contexts, you have global rules, you have project rules to be more specific, and then you have session memory that you're managing as well. You would have specialist delegation at this point too. So you're going to use the sub agents over inline prompting because of just the efficiency measurement alone. But then the general ability for an engineer to basically have 2 to 3 other multiple engineers or analysts, being the agents in this example. Those agents are able to help you do quality review, security review, data privacy review, all in the meantime while you're writing the code, or orchestrating the code, I think, is the way we obviously want to start phrasing that you're not writing the code. And then explicit routing, right? The model doesn't guess, it follows the table, or a table that you've kind of configured when it comes to routing and work. And then a compounding state with that memory. So there's a memory that persists and improves across all of these sessions, right? Like these are things that are already being developed out by the Claude Code team, where they're actually working on a lot of these layers, just working naturally inside of Claude Code. So a lot of the stuff that I have configured even today, a lot of the more advanced level 5 things, I do fully expect these things to just become managed by the Claude Code team's work over time. So a big fan, by the way, of everything that the Claude Code team has been working on over there. So level 5 for comparison of your work will get you to a place where you're managing obviously multiple projects. They're orchestrated over many different hours over the day, and perhaps even at the phase where you would be, the commits and the PRs being approved and the work that's being approved, everything that's kind of being done, is at the level, the par that you would perform if you had the time to sit there at your desk and perform that work, and be 100% effective, right? So that 10x engineer that used to exist in terms of just working and sitting at the desk, that person should be looking at themselves as a 100x engineer now, if they're able to orchestrate properly and build the things properly here that we're going to get into. So like, context is super important too, right? Well, great. Let's talk about the beginning of that context build. So the global Claude MD file that's usually set up and configured, the file location that's automatically set up for Claude is here. It's listed in the .claude Claude MD file, and that loads every single session automatically, right? So remember what I mean by that too, is like it loads every session, not every message, and then the context window obviously will grow. So the attributes that are kind of tied here can grow a little bit more loose if the context window that you're pushing it to the brink, right? But that, I think that changes over time too. So these things are not definitive. This is just how it works as of today, May 17th, 2026, right? I think the single most important line in the entire setup that I've noticed up to this point is giving Claude the understanding that it's a coordinator, not the executor, right? What does that mean, right? There's that difference of really putting those agents that we know to be available, which the creator of Claude, Boris, he talked about this in an interview. So I've actually really been studying like what his setup is, his team setup, how they kind of maneuver as the Cloud Code setup team in general. And this is one of the ways that I know he talked about of just making sure you can really maximize the agent itself and kind of duplicate its efforts. And that gets, I think, Boris, as he talked about, he's working pretty nonstop, right? If I bet you if you looked at his GitHub, it shows him working almost 24/7, right? Like 50 plus commits a day, 60 plus commits a day, hundreds of commits a day. That's only possible if you have context built up properly, right? So the routing table of Claude Code that we talked about is for my setup here is that there's a security review for literally every particular workflow that dispatches to what I call the chief security officer agent. Um, and then there's an AWS infra backend architect that I have dispatched as an agent. You can have an Azure one, Google Cloud, on premises cloud agent, right? Like it's just how do you build the context? Um, and that's how you should build it. You should be building those agents to carry out that repeatable work, right? And then the model will follow explicit routing. It doesn't guess the intent, which is why Claude Code and Codex, as of May 17th, 2026, are effectively listening to their context files with almost 100%. I want to say 99%, 100% adherence to the system, right? The sub agents that have been talked about that I've been kind of addressing here is that um, these are just so powerful. And here's my setup, right? Like I currently have 16 agents that are set up. Each is a specialist with its own system prompt and scoped tool access. Claude Code comes with 3 built-in agents that are available by default and composable with custom ones. And then what I would say is like the practitioner move here is that you're dispatching the right specialist for the right task. So anytime that you can do a self audit or just review your own work and you notice that you're not dispatching the right agents or the right agents are not being dispatched from your prompts correctly because the prompt the general conversation of the prompt doesn't understand what it wants you to do or what agent should be going out, you as the practitioner should be updating that to correctly understand which subagent should be picking that up, right? And then in a lot of the release notes, Cloud Code's team has already been making quite a few updates to the adherence here and the alignment of the models to pay attention to the descriptions and different things like that. So I think you have to worry less about this and really just become ingrained with how to properly use these. Yeah. Okay. 1 second. I'm gonna take a drink. So let's talk safety rails, because I think if you're a senior practitioner at this point, you're like, hey, Ernest, sounds great, but what if it deletes my production level database, right? That's been in the news many times. You've seen people say stuff like it just went and deleted, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you from my point of view how you need to be set up and configured to prevent your agent from not having the proper context to be able to handle the work and then to perform some not even malfeasance. It's not a malicious situation. It is the agent not having enough context. And so it is trying to live up to your requirement. And if you don't have these things set up correctly, you'll find yourself missing your production database overnight, right? So skills here is that guardrails wise, that's going to be, I think, the verification and prevent premature completion. That can be embedded in your Claude Code file as well. You can embed that in memory files, and there's different ways to do that. And then there's the session context, right? This is the skills that have been loaded into each session. These are set up and configured by you. You can by the way that you engage the model, by the mode that you're in, which I think is Shift Tab. You can cycle through those modes. You control the way that the model should be driving through its work. So individual prompting is very important for you to understand where you are on that. Next is going to be like those core skills that you'll work with. I currently have 75 skills in mind. I've seen people with outrageous numbers. I don't know if there's a sweet spot yet. I'd say I've noticed that more than 100 um, become redundant. Not even that they're not something the model can't access, but it just becomes redundant. Like a lot of the skill sets are just not unnecessarily built on top of each other. The ones I use the most here, you kind of see on the screen: systematic debugging skill. This is just this is essential, right? Structured root cause workflow for debugging. You can run this on schedule with your cloud agents, right? Either on premises or in the cloud with its own environment configurations. But you could have debugging happening through the system 24/7, right? That could be a thing if you could get your system configured in that way. Um, Verification before completion. This is one that works really, really well now. Even if you are working like I do in bypass permissions mode, I work in bypass permissions mode 99% of the time with Cloud Code. I have probably for the last 5 months. That's just because I truly have everything set up in this way. I've not had any mistakes with Claude in such a disastrous way. But even if it was a disastrous move, I am using the SDLC and the proper methods here to keep myself secure as the manager, right? And then I'm writing plans. We talked about where planning needs to be where you spend most of your time, not least of your time. And this will talk about how it forces explicit planning before any execution. Again, I have 75 skills loaded today. They're loaded on demand. That's the configuration I have. I believe you can load them during every session. I just don't see the need for that, right? I just don't see the need for that. It's just not necessary if you have more insight on what the heck it is you're trying to do, right? Don't let Claude Code be guessing. Don't let Codex be guessing. That's what I would say. Sorry, I had to take a drink. Oop, let me go back. Okay, so, yep, I went too far. Okay, so let's talk about MCP servers. This is going to be a level 4 particular configuration. These are the ones that I have configured today. Again, you don't have to do this stuff, right? These are things that you don't even need to go configure in MCP. But these are the ways that I have them set up and the way I use them today. I have a Gemini Bridge, is what I call that. It's a second opinion research and notebook synthesis situation. So it actually uses Google Gemini's Notebook LM API backend situation to run bigger research queries and larger research questions for all of the work I've been committed to. What that means is instead of Claude Code doing those quick searches on its own internet searching ability, where it's basically looking to like the first or second page on the internet, like you would, and only returning things that it thinks are relevant in that small split 5 to 10 second research question, you don't want to spend a crap ton of money on the wrong particular resources. Gemini and Notebook LM are the cheapest deep research tools that you can use right now. And Claude Code should be used more like the surgical tool that can either be like, let's say, like the appendix of a situation, like an actual tool, or the base configuration of a tool that it will then, um, let's say, latch onto another tool, and then it can drive that tool for you, basically. So, I use Gemini Bridge in that way. Perplexity is the next one. It does a lot of the same thing, but this is for live web search, so that I still don't use Claude Code from doing the confabulation that I would say on any recent library changes or library docs or anything with Perplexity, as that might happen with all of these different endpoints. But Perplexity is my resource for immediate sourcing of any reporting, any work that I do. Lastly, that I want to talk about today is that I have Notion set up. This is wired for several different things for me, but Notion is essentially the knowledge management system for your work, your life, your business, whatever it is that you would do. So you would use that to connect your content matrix. So I do it for this. I do it for my content here, where the agent can read and write project content directly. It can contribute. It can draft things. I can have it redo those things. A lot of the same features you might even find like OpenClaw. I don't know if you're familiar, if you know what OpenClaw is, but yeah. So MCP servers are very, very helpful for your configuration. Memory system compounding context here. This is where I have my project set up currently, and also Claude Code uses memory correctly to stay on top of project state, prior corrections, and session references that persist across every session. So every time you start a new chat, every time your chat kind of grows, it is adding context to its memory files so that it is not starting from a completely new place. I think this is the element that most developers skip. They're not telling Claude to update memory correctly. They're not reviewing that memory a lot. They're not asking it to make sure you have, let's just say, conversations back and forth, right? Like you can tell Claude to tell you what is in that file, right? And to have that conversation. I have a sub agent that looks over the sessions and then looks over the memory and will update appropriately or send me interactions so I can figure that out, right? Like Slack message or email, either way. But create a more interactive system is what I would say. Okay, so we're at 26 minutes. I probably will split this one up. I'll probably drop the second part 2 on Wednesday. So I'll go over a couple more sites here and we'll say, so look, this again, let's talk about the full level 5 stack setup at a glance, right? This is what I want to attribute. Number one, you should have Claude Code or Claude MD set up. If you don't have that set up, again, take time to do that. That's all about how you set up the rules, how the agent understands what to do. Sub agents, you should have sub agents set up more than just the 3 that are built in. You should think about ones that are special to you, ones that are necessary to you. You can even ask Claude Code to look at your recent sessions and figure out what sub agents would be great to make. You can look at the skills that you currently have and figure out if you need to build more or if the skills you have just need to be updated. Maybe you haven't updated them in a long time. MCP servers, you probably heard a crap ton about this, obviously, at this point. But what you need to know is that they are essential. The right one is essential, and the right one can change your workflow entirely. And then number 5 is that you need to make sure your memory is persistent across every single session that you're interacting with, and that your project state is being captured and updated through documentation and memory every single time. So yeah, this is the setup in general for like again, a level 5 Claude Code setup, OpenAI Codex setup, Gemini CLI, and XAI Grok coding agent at this point. So again, like this video if you haven't already. We're going to talk about in part 2 a project that I'm currently working on that's going to be live done, and then I'm going to post up the repository, so maybe we get some open source contribution across the internet. So if you're looking at your screen now, the project is called Voice Jarvis, and it seems pretty obvious, right? It's a home assistant, and I want it to kind of act like Jarvis. I was going to name it something else. I'm going to call mine Jamal, which from here, it'll be voice in, voice out, talks to the home lab, listens for wake words, can help me manage automations around the house and the home lab itself. And then it will I'll talk about everything that's going on, but like literally today, I'm in the middle of a migration on it where I'm moving away from the real-time API to Pipecat, which is way cheaper and more flexible and runs locally. So there's real stakes to this because it's in my home environment. I do call that the production environment for testing. So I think, if you want to stick around for part 2 that I'll drop later this week, you'll be able to get real time looks at how you can also set up everything that we talked about level 5 Claude Code. So you can use that in a home lab project or just watch on this project where real time we'll be setting up that voice agent to knock out the issue with the ticket here that you'll see, which is that there's actual Pipecat issue in the transport labor, and we want to make sure we keep documentation updated on all this in real time. So two applicable things for business, and then in your personal development as an engineer, working on a PR, finding a bug, and then keeping documentation up to date in real time, right? And then again, we'll talk about how all of that has built you to a level 5 Claude Code user, and eventually one of the best generalists in artificial intelligence code development and product management that there is. So, um, yeah. Uh, Stick around for that part 2 Wednesday, and drop a comment. Like I said, share some love, share this video, like and subscribe. Go to the link in my bio to check out my other socials, and yeah, I look forward to talking. See y'all later.